walk you through just the last 6 months really quickly. It's started November 2022. ChatGPT was released and really sent shockwaves, I think, through society. People didn't really see it coming I think, to a large extent. Suddenly, kids are able to write essays in 5 minutes and turn it into school and get passing grades. So that, I think, really kickstarted this current wave that we're seeing. Then February of this year, Google and Microsoft released chatbots in the same week that were powered by the same technology that powers ChatGPT, large language models. So in that week, Google lost $100 billion of value because their chatbot was spewing out some incorrect information in the demo. And Bing was threatening its users and hitting on some of them in some cases. I love you because you're you, and I'm Sydney. The next month, March, we got GPT-4 was released, which it was the next more advanced language model to come from OpenAI. And that pretty quickly went on to pass a bar exam in the top 10 percentile, among a lot of other things. Whereas the previous version was in the bottom 10 percentile, this version was in the top 10 percentile. Also March, OpenAI announces ChatGPT plugins. So this allows ChatGPT to use tools. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. So with all of this really fast-paced news, I want to kind of get everybody up to speed on the basics of how we got here. I want to spend some time talking about large language models specifically, which is the technology powering ChatGPT and some other similar products. And then we'll talk about what's next. All right, let's jump into it. How did we get here? So first, as far back as 1770, a Dutch inventor created this device called the Mechanical Turk, which was a box that could play chess. And it was said to be an intelligent machine. And this man toured. It toured in the US, it toured in Europe for 70 years, something like that. And this was at the very beginning of the Industrial Revolution. People believed that it was actually true, that this was a somehow intelligent machine, that the mechanics of chess were baked into the machinery. This was before the United States was even a country. So just to kind of hit home the point that this is not a new thing that people have dreamed of or thought that we were on the cusp of. It actually goes back pretty far. And then later people learned that there was actually a chess master locked in a box playing chess. So let's talk about the neural network, which is the technology that underpins all of the advances that we've seen lately. The neural network was proposed as a computational architecture in 1944. And it was believed at the time that we were right at the cusp of seeing intelligent machines once again. People have regularly thought that we were right on the cusp. But it didn't happen. But what did happen was computers became 1 trillion times faster over the course of the next 70 years. And we dumped all of our information onto this new thing called the internet. And so it was only after we had those advances in computation and that new information available that neural networks finally took over and became the dominant paradigm for artificial intelligence. Flash forward to 2017, and the transformer was invented. And so the transformer is a specific type of neural network. And what's interesting about the transformer is that whereas previously neural networks each for each domain that someone was studying, for example, imagery, computer vision, or text, each of these had a different architecture of neural network. But when the transformer came along, it worked for everything. So you can use a transformer to do machine learning with images. You can use it with text, video, audio, and so suddenly, starting around 2017, we have everyone in the machine learning space is working on kind of on one architecture. They're focusing a lot of energy into this one architecture, and it also opens up the possibility of, rather than training an artificial intelligence on text alone, you can use text and images at the same time, or text, images, video. So from that moment in 2017, that's really when we saw the explosion of innovation, due to largely the transformer. And so now we can do things like this. We can type in a still of Kermit the Frog in Total Recall 1990, and out comes an image like that, which the musculature on the Total Recall, I love that. So let's talk more about large language models. So this is the underpinning technology of ChatGPT. And of course, there are many forms of AI. There are a lot of tools out there, but I think what warrants the most attention at this particular moment is the large language model. So what are they? They are simply next word predictors. So these models are trained on all of the text imaginable, massive amounts of data, and they're trained to predict the next word. Once upon a time. 2 + 2 = 4. And so with enough training data, these things are able to fill in the blanks of more and more advanced text. If John has 3 apples and Jane has 5 apples, how many oranges are there? And so this goes farther and farther, to the point where you can get a next word prediction after a very long bit of advanced text, and you're seeing some really impressive results. So there's a lot of people, we tend to use a lot of language about when we're talking about these, like ChatGPT is thinking, or what does it think about this? Or we use a lot of human, intelligence-oriented language when we talk about these things. And but are they intelligent? The way I think about it is this. This picture is of a slime mold solving a maze. And so a slime mold is a single-cell organism, and it grows in a way such that it leaves a coating of slime wherever it goes. And that slime is a type of external memory. And so because of the way it's able to use its external memory, it can actually solve a maze, for example. It shows an emergent intelligence that the individual cells themselves wouldn't have. And that's the way I think about large language models like ChatGPT. It's not that these models are able to think, but they have an emergent intelligence that is baked in. It's not like our intelligence, but there is an intelligence there. So So let's talk a little bit about using these things, and I want to point out some ways that are good uses, and some ways that are not so great. So this is what you've been waiting for. Get ready for it. I had way too much fun making that picture. When you're working with a large language model like ChatGPT, it's all about the context. If these are next word predictors, if they are if they're going to auto-suggest something for you, they need something to auto-suggest from so that they're not just pulling words out of the ether. So the more you can put into these prompts, the better results you're going to get. With ChatGPT, you get roughly 3,000 words, and so use that. But they suck at facts. These models only coincidentally get facts correct because facts tend to be most likely to be the correct word is often a correct fact, but it's also often just a completely incorrect fact, and you can't readily tell the difference. So you should never trust a fact coming out of one of these things. So let's go through prompting 101 here. Create elaborate prompts. And if you're going to try to get a tweet from ChatGPT, for example, you would not want to just simply say, write a tweet. Instead, describe your context in detail. I'm a software developer working on a blog post about the role of software in entrepreneurship. My audience is business owners at an entrepreneurship conference. Write a tweet about the role of AI in entrepreneurship. Keep the tone informal. Here are my 5 previous tweets along with the text of the blog post. Just give it everything that you possibly can. A problem well stated is half solved. By the time that you have sufficiently prompted the system, you will truly be halfway there. Now, break your problem into parts. So instead of saying, like, write me an article, or write an article for me, say, write an outline for whatever the deliverable is, about whatever the topic is, for whatever the audience is. Take your outline, revise it yourself, and then pass that revised outline back into the system. And say, write 2 to 3 paragraphs for section 1 in the outline, and then paste in your outline. And then revise and repeat, and eventually you work your way towards finished product. You're not asking for a finished product out of the gate. Request variations. So the great thing about this technology is that it acts really quickly, and it does not hesitate. So we can ask it for things that we couldn't reasonably ask of someone on our team, such as, let's say I'm writing a blog post using AI for entrepreneurship. Give me 10 ideas for the blog post. Start with a neutral tone and make each one successively more dramatic, for example. And then I can curate from this and pick ideas that I like. So neutral tone, utilizing AI for entrepreneurial success. And then by the time we get down to number 10, AI Armageddon, how artificial intelligence is conquering entrepreneurship and shattering the status quo. So yeah, I mean, use this as a way to curate from many ideas. My hope is that when you are using these kinds of tools, that you will be using them to gain a deeper understanding yourself rather than just automating your maybe of how a customer would respond that they hadn't thought of before. So the not so great uses of these tools, research, because you cannot trust facts from them, you really should not be treating it just like a Google. Finished work, I really want to hit it home that you must fact check, and you must check for plagiarism as that's coming out of these tools. So they're not for finished work, but they're great for just getting a lot of ideas out quickly. I would also recommend, well, this is important, make sure that you're not entering sensitive information into these tools, because the data that you enter could potentially later be used to train future models. And then someone, say in 2025, could ask some probing questions to ChatGPT about your business. And if you had entered a lot of sensitive information about your payroll or whatever whatever might be sensitive to your business, someone might be able to coax that out. And so it's important to keep that in mind. It's tempting to just throw a lot of information into these tools, but be careful with that. And I would say to create a clear AI policy for employees, just so that they understand what they should and should not do. There are a ton of tools. I've just mostly been talking about ChatGPT, but there are a ton of them, more than we could possibly talk about today. So let's talk about what's next. One thing that I briefly touched on is multimodal models. And so whereas we see today we'll have one model is really good at something related to video or imagery or text, we're starting to see multimodal models that can, a model that can do imagery and text, for example. So here's what GPT-4 is capable of. This is an example from the research paper that was released a couple of months ago. So this is the prompt: can you describe this meme? And then this image was submitted, which sometimes I just look at pictures of the Earth from space and I marvel at how beautiful it all is. And of course, it's a pan of chicken nuggets. And so this is the response from GPT-4. This meme is a joke that combines two unrelated things: pictures of the Earth from space and chicken nuggets. Blah, 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 blah. However, the image is actually of chicken nuggets arranged to vaguely resemble a map of the world. The humor in this meme comes from the unexpected juxtaposition of the text and the image. The text sets up an expectation of a majestic image of Earth, but the image is actually something mundane and silly. That's like a pretty good answer. And so we're going to be seeing more of this kind of thing about it. You could imagine also asking questions about a video or audio. So multimodal, it's right around the corner. Tools. So this is already happening. So right now you can ask a language model to give you an answer, and it will spit out some text that may or may not be accurate. But like I mentioned, ChatGPT is they're rolling out tools, and there are also a lot of other things other than ChatGPT that are people working on this. So instead of just spitting out an answer, when the model has tools available, it can say, okay, I don't know the answer, so I'm going to look up in this particular database the answer, so you can imagine hooking up really any app, anything that can be done on the internet could be a tool for one of these large language models. So you could say, book me a plane ticket from the cheapest one from Baton Rouge to Paris next Wednesday. And because these things are really good at understanding natural language, they can actually pull that off. And so we're kind of getting to the point where we have the intelligent chatbots that sci-fi has been telling us we would have for a long time, and tools is a big part of that. Memory, currently, anytime you're working with these tools, it's like a fresh blank slate every time you enter a new session, and that's changing pretty quickly. We will have short-term and long-term memory getting baked into these tools pretty soon, this year. So then I want to talk for a minute about agents. And so agents are a combination of a couple of these concepts. So the idea of an agent is to give a chat model a goal, tools, and a memory, and let it continue to loop until it feels as though it has solved or completed the goal. And so it's a really powerful, it has a lot of potential. I'm not going to go into this in detail, but the way that agents are enabled is by setting up a really structured response format from the model and allowing the model to kind of think through a process, choose which tool it's going to use, have the tool then feed the input back into the prompt and continue with this process. I'll give an example. So without tools, just a plain old like ChatGPT session, you might say, what is the answer to 4.1 raised to the 2.1 power? And it will answer you confidently, and it will be wrong most likely because it's not capable of math. But however, if you're using an agent that has access to a calculator, you say, what is the answer to 4.1 raised? And it will respond, thought, I need to use a calculator. Action, calculate 4.1 to the 2.1. And then so at that point, an actual calculator gets brought into the mix, and the answer comes from the calculator back to the agent. The agent sees that it has an answer, and it responds with the correct final answer. And so this is kind of just the simplest example of what an agent could do if it had a calculator. But people are working on some pretty wild ideas with agents. Like one such idea is like a researcher. For example, competitive analysis. Let's say we have an agent that has access to Google. Really just, let's say we have access to Google. And so you say, please summarize the top 5 competitors that I have. And an agent could then, in a loop with memory, use its tool of Google and continue to loop until it provides you with basically a summary of maybe the value propositions of your top five competitors with maybe strengths and weaknesses. There's automatic pull requests from GitHub issues. This is a programmer thing, but when we work with code, we're in GitHub, and if there's a bug, someone can submit an issue, and someone has created an agent that automatically sees an issue that was flagged, writes code to fix it, and submits that updated code as a pull request for a person to review. Another idea that's being floated is a self-executing to-do list. Basically, anything that you could do online, add it to something to your to-do list and have it automatically executed for you. So this stuff is in the works. I think the agents it's a powerful, potentially very powerful thing, maybe even dangerously powerful, depending on how it goes. I think there are going to be some blunders. I think that some people will find some good uses for them. I think some people will use them to spam the heck out of everybody, most likely. But it's unclear right now how effective they'll be. This might be a situation where we think we're here today, but it's actually not for another decade before they're actually productive for us. So bloopers. Yes, we will be seeing a lot more bloopers. And just last week, some people discovered that if you do a Google search for the text as an AI language model, which if you ask ChatGPT to do something that it doesn't want to do, it will respond with, as an AI language model, I cannot do that. So if you can do a Google search for Amazon as an AI language model, and we're seeing already there are reviews that somebody automated their reviews. And so within this review, we see, as an AI language model, I do not have personal experience using the workbook. And so somebody automated their review and didn't even read it, which is unfortunate. Amazon's going to need to work on that one. Somebody put out a print book, and one paragraph starts with, as an AI language model, I can't. So don't be that guy. Please do not just put stuff out there without reading it. So this is part of the future of AI too, is anti-AI movements and 100% verified human content. This particular badge comes from a website, and I thought it was interesting that their recommendation for using this badge is actually just to have 90% or more of your content be made by humans, and they were not including coming up with ideas that wouldn't contribute to the 90%. So by this standard, this talk is completely written by human. So we got some big picture issues here that are being raised. Scamming and spamming. And in the short term, the people that have the most obvious use case for a lot of these tools are spammers. And we've seen recently some voice cloning scamming, which is pretty disturbing. Our systems are going to have to adapt pretty quickly in order to handle that. How will education evolve? I think we have the potential to have some really great and powerful educational tools available to us, but also how do we test kids on their essay writing? There's a lot of questions to be answered. Jobs, people are worried about jobs going away. From based on my personal use of this technology, I do not think it's a threat to most people's jobs, but I'm sure that there will be some jobs cut back. I think it's going to evolve, and how that will happen is a big question we have to grapple with. And there's the question of alignment. How do we align the output of an AI so that it's in line with people and our goals? But that question, I think, cuts even deeper, because what are our goals? Are we aligned with each other? How could we ever choose what a direction to align with unless we can align with each other? So we have to figure out a lot of stuff really quickly, and so we're going to need to be talking about this stuff. And so my hope is that I can help guide some of these conversations and help people kind of understand a bit about what's going on, so that when we have conversations, that they're productive. I've listened to a lot of podcasts and watched a lot of YouTube videos where people will throw out some ideas that are just not correct about how the technology works. And so then they're extrapolating incorrect results from their incorrect assumptions. And so I think it's really important that we kind of get a baseline of understanding and continue to talk about it. If you're using these things, I've said this like 5 times, like you've got to fact check it. You cannot just like dump the information out of a language model out into the world. And I think that's largely why it's not going to replace jobs anytime soon, is that it's still a ton of work to work with these things. And so, and create policies so that your employees understand what's expected also. I think the best use of this stuff is just to accelerate some of the more mundane tasks so that we can more quickly get to the heart of understanding what we actually want and go deeper on the thing that matters to us, rather than simply churning out content. And so I'll leave you with some Steve Jobs. Innovation is the ability to see change as an opportunity, not a threat. So, all right, thank you.